Hello everybody, welcome back to the Spoked Wheel YouTube channel. Today we're back with episode 27 of the Andy Schleck Pro Cyclist mode playthrough, which is also our very first episode in Season 3 on a World Tour team, CCC. We got the contract offer from them towards the end of last season, so we've moved up another division, which is great because at the start of this series, our goal is to try and win the Tour de France, and we will get a crack at that race this season. But before we get into the calendar and races and things like that, here's a quick look at where our attributes are at the moment. At the start of Season 3, we're a 78 average, 84 mountain is our biggest strength. Our time trial has increased a little bit up to 63. It's still not great, so hopefully we'll be able to boost that up a little bit more before we get to the Tour. And same thing with our stamina, resistance, and recovery. I'm hoping that we can improve those a little bit by the time we get to the Tour in order to give us a better chance at winning it. For this video, we're going to start by just going over the calendar and looking at what races we're taking part in, and then once we've done that, we'll get into a few races as well. But before we get into that part of things, I just want to say a quick thank you for all the support I've gotten on the PCM 21 videos I've posted so far. That sort of support really helps me want to make more videos, so I appreciate everyone who tuned in for those. I'm excited to keep going with more PCM 21 videos once we wrap up the Andy Schleck series, which won't be too long from now. So looking at the calendar, you see that we've got a couple of early season races before getting into 2 World Tour stage races at UAE, which we rode last season, and then also Tirreno Adriatico as well. And then when we advance a month, we get to our first sort of major target area of the season, which is the 3 Ardennes Classics and then also the Giro d'Italia. I think in this video, the 2 races that I'm going to record are liège-bastogne-liège, because at the start that was one of our targets as well, given that Andy won that race in 2009. It seems fitting that we should include it now that we get to ride it. And then I'll end up this video with one of the mountain stages from the last week of the Giro to kind of conclude things. Basically, my thought process behind adding the Giro to this season was Andy's actual first Grand Tour was the Giro in 2007, I believe, and also I think it's a good opportunity to get us a good source of XP before we get to the Tour. We should get some boost for completing it because it will be our first Grand Tour and things like that, so hopefully playing it and going through it quickly will actually help us out in preparation for the Tour as well. And then if we advance another month, we have the Tour de Suisse as our tune-up race, Nationals, and then the Tour de France, which will probably be the last race that we play in this Andy Schleck Pro Cyclist mode series. So once we get there, we're going to go all in to try and win the Tour with Andy and achieve our goal. But either way, I think that race is going to be the conclusion of the series, so we can get into some more PCM 21 stuff. So with all that covered, let's get right into the racing. Alright, we have reached the first race of the video, which is, of course, liège-bastogne-liège, La Doyenne. As I said earlier, Andy Schleck won this race back in 2009, so it was one of the big targets at the start of this series. We finished, I want to say, 26th when we rode it last season. But we are a better rider now than we were then, certainly. As you can see from our attributes, we've leveled up again, got into 85 mountain rating, so we've maxed that out. 79 hill plus the +4 on the day gives us a very solid 83 hill rating for our attempt at riding liège-bastogne-liège. We've got a pretty decent team around us as well at CCC. Our old rival at the Tour de l'Avenir, Henry Van den Belle, is on the team. He's in the breakaway here. Attila Valter is a very strong rider on the team. Van Gils also has been very good on the climbs this season, as well as Liege, a Frenchman. He might be a generated rider. I'm not familiar with him, but he's a very solid climber as well. So we've got a decent support system. I'm not necessarily expecting to win this race. I think that would be kind of a tough ask, but a top 5 I think would be a really good result. we've had some decent results in the other Ardennes races. We finished 3rd at Amstel Gold and in the top 10 at La Flèche Wallonne. So if we could continue that trend and sort of shoot for a top 5, top 10, I think that would be a very solid result at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. But of course, we'll look to try and win it if possible. But yeah, all we can really do is just give it our best and see how we fare against the competition here. We're a little bit more than halfway through Liège-Bastogne-Liège right now. We're approaching the section of the race that's filled with the short, steep climbs that are going to decide things. Our guy Henry Vandenbel is still in the breakaway, but it looks like they're just about to be caught here, as the gap is down to under 20 seconds at this point. So I would expect things to stay relatively calm for a bit longer, but then once we get into this section of the race with these climbs, I think things are going to split up significantly and people are going to go on the attack early and often. So we're going to have to stay on guard and try and mark any moves from major favorites to keep ourselves in contention. Inside of 60 kilometers to go now, I think we're still surviving pretty well and managing our energy. We still have 3 different teammates in this reduced peloton of 30 riders. Most of them are pretty close to being out of energy though, so I imagine we'll be on our own before too long. But yeah, I think for the time being we've managed our energy well. Still have a lot of our yellow bar left, and there's not too many riders left, so I think we're doing a nice job of pacing ourselves and staying in a good spot. With about 30 kilometers to go, we've made it into a small group of 12 riders here as Benoit Cosnefroid attacks again to try and get out of this group. Let's follow that one and make sure we don't get left behind. But the move came, I believe, from Cosnefroid himself on the Col de la Redoute. Split things up significantly, but we've done a nice job of following wheels and being able to find ourselves in this group that's now been reduced down to 8 riders. So we're in a good spot, now 9 as Bauke Mollema rejoins, but as the race reaches its conclusion, we're in a very solid spot. We're heading towards the final difficulty of the day now, the Côte de la Roche au Faucon. We're in a group of 10 riders, so our top 10 is looking pretty much guaranteed at this point, unless something major happens like a crash. Wout van Aert is still here in this group, so really impressive ride by him. The more pure punchers are going to have to attack again to try and get rid of him if they don't want to take this to a sprint, but we've got another move coming on this climb, so let's try and follow wheels once again. It's Dylan Teuns this time who takes things up. Looks like every time there's an acceleration, Bauke Mollema falls off the pace slightly, but he's done a nice job of coming back. We'll see if he's able to do that again this time. Cosnefroid is going to counterattack over the top of the climb there, bringing Hirschi with him, Higuita here as well, Alaphilippe, so lots of big riders here in this group, just about everyone you'd expect, and we've managed to find ourselves in some pretty solid company as a result. Alaphilippe is now going to try and close the gap to Cosnefroid here. He's able to do that. We're able to follow his wheel for a bit. We're now out of red energy with Andy Schleck, but we've managed to land in a group of 7 riders as we head into the last 10 kilometers, so things are looking really good. We're going to have an outside shot at getting in this top 5. Still some good sprinters here, but if 1 or 2 more moves goes, we could be in a perfect position to capitalize. With 5 kilometers to go, it's actually Wout van Aert who's made the move, even though he's by far the best sprinter in this group. Sergio Higuita is trying to close down the gap. Julian Alaphilippe here as well. We're just following wheels at this point because we don't really have a sprint to contend with these guys in a straight-up battle, so hopefully if they can spend some energy and bring Van Aert back, we might have a chance in the sprint, but it's going to be tough to bring Wout back because he's an incredibly strong rider, but into the final kilometer, Van Aert fades. It's going to be Alaphilippe versus Cosnefroid for the win. Benoit Cosnefroid, it looks like, takes it just ahead of Alaphilippe. Mark Hirschi in 3rd. Dylan Teuns 4th. Higuita 5th. And Andy Schleck takes 6th, just ahead of Wout van Aert. So maybe some questionable tactics there by Van Aert to attack instead of trying to win it in the sprint, but I'm pretty happy with that 6th place for Andy Schleck. We weren't quite able to replicate the win in 2009, but for the first time riding Liège-Bastogne-Liège on a World Tour team, that's a very solid result. We have made it to the final mountain stage of the 2022 Giro, stage 20 from Alba to Sestriere, and as you can see by the beautiful Maglia Rosa that Andy Schleck is wearing, we're in a phenomenal position right now. We're currently leading the Giro after 19 stages. Simon Yates is our closest rival. He's in second place right now, 2 minutes and 55 seconds back of Andy Schleck, so we really just have to ride defensively here on this last mountain stage before a flat stage tomorrow to conclude the race. It's been an exciting Giro. At the start, it looked like Richard Carapaz and Miguel Angel Lopez were the two strongest riders. They dropped everyone else, including ourselves, on the first mountain stage, but since then, both of those guys have sort of faded away. Remco led the race for a while after a time trial earlier on where he took a lot of time on everyone, but we were able to get rid of him in the mountains, and I think we were pretty consistently the strongest climber in this race, and it's why we have the gap that we do at this point in the race. So it's a really good sign for the Tour, I think. I'd imagine that Roglic and Pogačar will both be there, so it might be a little bit more difficult in terms of competition, but I think this Giro, which was sort of designed to be the warm-up for the Tour for us, has shown that we can ride at this level in a Grand Tour against some of the best GC contenders in the world. So, of course, we haven't finished the race yet, and anything can happen, but if the first 19 stages are any indication, I think we'll be able to ride defensively in the mountains today. Maybe the stage win will go to the breakaway. I'm not sure. It has a couple times in the last few days. I'd be okay with that for sure, but all we really need to worry about is just not losing 3 minutes to Simon Yates, because if we're able to accomplish that, we will wrap up our first Grand Tour victory and our first Grand Tour with Andy Schleck. We're into the mountains now. The breakaway of 15 riders has about 8 minutes and 35 seconds of an advantage with under 60 kilometers to go, so there's a decent chance that they will fight out the stage win honors amongst themselves, but I think the race is pretty much in control. De Kooning right now is pacing a little bit, EF as well. Hugh Carthy's in third, so they're probably riding for him to maybe try and move up and pass Simon Yates, but our team, I think, has done a really nice job of managing things for us in this race. Liège, Van Gils, Van den Bel, and Attila Valter all proved to be very useful climbers. Matteo Trentin, I think, was the MVP of the race for us. He was climbing extremely well. He probably deserved a stage win for his efforts. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, I don't think, but it's been nice having such a strong team. They've been able to help us out and put us in great positions in the climbs and on flatter stages as well. So I'm really happy with how they performed, and that's another good sign, I think, ahead of the Tour. We'll definitely have some support in the high mountains, which we can use to try and shake things up and tip things to our advantage for sure. We're on to the final climb now. We're currently responding to a move from Hugh Carthy, Simon Yates going with him. Carthy's presumably trying to move up from third to second in the standings, but he seems to have stopped attacking now. Richard Carapaz attacked earlier. He's not a huge concern because he's over 7 minutes down, so we're really just going to ride tempo here up this final climb. And I was about to say, the only rider we really need to respond to is Simon Yates, so Yates attacks, we got to respond to that for sure because he's second on GC, but if we can just stick with him up this climb, we should be fine. And he's stopped attacking again, so yeah, we're just going to ride tempo, set a steady pace up this climb, and if Yates goes again, we'll respond, but other than that, no real need to go on the offensive and get more time at this point. We're into the last kilometer of the stage. Michael Gogol took the stage win. We're just following the wheel of Simon Yates here. And let's sprint for it as we approach the finish line. Carthy goes for it as well, but we're going to finish best of the GC riders in 5th place behind 4 riders in the breakaway. We lost no time to any significant rivals, so with that, we should have done enough to win the Giro d'Italia and take our first Grand Tour. We've jumped ahead to the end of stage 21 into Milan. Fernando Gaviria won the sprint ahead of Matteo Trentin to end the Giro, but we are more concerned with the next rider to step onto the podium, because that is Andy Schleck. We've won our first Grand Tour in our first attempt at riding a Grand Tour, 3 minutes ahead of Simon Yates. Hugh Carthy rounds out the podium, 11 seconds back of Yates, with Lopez and Carapaz in the top 5 as well. So some strong competition that we've managed to beat at this Giro, which I think bodes very well for our chances at getting onto the podium at the Tour as well. Eddie Dunbar was the rider who took home the King of the Mountains jersey. We finished 3rd in that competition just by picking up points on summit finishes and things like that. Sam Bennett wins the Maglia Ciclamino for the points classification. He was probably the best sprinter at the race, most consistent sprinter for sure. We managed to get 6th in that competition as well, so pretty decent result for Andy Schleck there. We win the Young Rider classification, 14 minutes ahead of Remco with Brandon McNulty in 3rd. That's another very good result. I believe Andy won the Young Riders classification in his first ever Grand Tour, so nice that we were able to replicate that as well. And in the team classification, we didn't do so well. Finished 10th in the end. It goes to Ineos, but that's okay. I think we'll take the individual win with Andy Schleck for sure. So to wrap up the video, I just wanted to take a look at what we've accomplished to this point in the season. So we started with a victory in a one-day race in Spain. We also won a stage race in Valencia. We won the UAE Tour for our first World Tour stage race win, I think. We then finished 4th at Tirreno Adriatico before moving to the Ardennes Classics, where we got 3rd at Amstel Gold, 8th at La Flèche Wallonne, and 6th at liège-bastogne-liège. Then we got into the Giro, where you can see some of our stage results. We won the stage on stage 15, one of the mountain stages. I think that was our only stage win. It was, but we won the overall as well to win our first Grand Tour and our first time riding a Grand Tour. So I think that went even better than I expected in terms of the warm-up for the Tour. It got us a lot of XP. We're up to level 22 now. 85 mountain, 80 hill. Time trial is even up to 69. Our resistance and recovery are both pretty decent at 73 and 74. It would be nice if our stamina was a touch higher, but I think it will be okay for the Tour. And I think the Tour is pretty much going to be the last race that we do in this series. So the Tour de Suisse and the National Championships are before that. But if I counted correctly, I think there's 9 mountain stages in the Tour this season. So if we do 3 stages per video, that is 3 more videos in the series, which would take us right up to episode 30, which seems like a nice number to end on. So I'll play through the Tour de Suisse and the National Championships, and then we'll get into the Tour, and hopefully we can try and win it with Andy. That was our main goal when we started this series way back when, so it's exciting that we're finally at the point where we can try and accomplish it. So thanks everyone for watching the videos. I appreciate the support. I hope you have been enjoying this series. I certainly have enjoyed playing it. It's been a lot of fun to play as Andy Schleck, considering that he was my favorite rider when he was still active. But yeah, we still have a couple important videos to go, so I'm excited to play them, and I hope you are also excited to watch them. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.